What's going on, guys? So today we're looking at two of the most popular Leathermans that are on the market today. On the one hand, we have the Wave, which is going to be the classic original. That is going to be probably the most well-known available today. And then we have one of the newer comers, the Wingman, which is going to be a much more affordable, lighter weight, and a little potentially more EDC-friendly version. So starting off on the outside, one of the things you notice is that it's a little bigger on the Wave. Got a little bit extra meat at the bottom, so it's going to have a little more chunk to it. And it also similar overall width. The big difference you can notice though is that the Wingman does have a pocket clip, so if you are going to be EDCing this as your primary knife as well, that's something to consider. From my understanding, I have seen some external add-ons you can get for these guys that will allow you to add a pocket clip to it as well as a ring that you can attach to the edge. So if that's something you're looking for, that is available as well. Now, starting out on the most important thing is going to be the knife. So first off, on the Wingman, I should say the Wave, you do have a both serrated edge as well as a plain edge on the outside. Both one hand opening, one hand closing. Very easily accessible, all locking blades. On the Wingman, however, you have a single blade that is going to be a combination edge, but the biggest thing is the size difference. On the Wave, you got about another ½ inch blade, plus you have the option of a plain edge, which, me personally, I do not like combination edges. I only like to go with plain edges unless there's a need that I have to be cutting something such as rope where I'm going to want a serrated edge. So next up, on the Wingman, the only other tool we have accessible from the outside is going to be the scissors. Now this is actually one thing it has going for it, is it has a much larger set of scissors than it does on the Wave. And they are accessible from the outside, so that's something you're going to be using a lot. That's something to keep in mind. On the Wave, however, you do have to open it up, pry it out there with a fingernail, close it back up without knocking the camera over, and then you have them accessible. Now notice the size difference between these two. Much more beefy pair of scissors on the Wingman. Me personally, I've probably used this maybe 3 to 4 times. Yes, they cut well on both. However, I don't use them to warrant a big old pair of scissors on the outside like the Wingman has. So, for me, granted they're smaller, I'm going to call that a win for the Wave. So that is the end we have for the external tools on the Wingman. Everything else is going to be on the inside. That also helps that you close it correctly. So again, all the tools are locking on the Wave. Now, the other two tools we have on the outside of the Wave, there's actually going to be nice features to have if you have a use for them. First up is going to be the wood saw, which, again, it is fairly small. However, it definitely does cut surprisingly well, which even just a few passes, you can get a decent little bit of bite into there. If I can get this thing to focus. And that's only with a couple passes. So it's not going to be something for heavy woodworking, but if you're out in the woods, you want to try making traps, figure fours, things like that, it would be nice to have. It could be very useful for you. And then finally, the other tool we haven't gone over yet is going to be the file. You do have a nice fine, very fine file on one side, and a crosscut file which is going to be a little bit finer than a mill bastard, it seems like. So I'm not sure what specifically they're calling that, but it's a little bit more on the finer side. Then, moving on the inside, moving into the pliers on both of these. One biggest thing to notice is that the Wingman is spring-loaded, the Wave is not. Size-wise, again, the Wave is going to be a little longer, but the actual cutting edge and where the pliers are going to be is very similar overall. Now, I will note that this is an older version of the Wave that is not going to be the replaceable carbide teeth. It is very similar in profile to what we have on the Wingman. But if you do like to have a spring-loaded set of pliers, Wingman is probably going to be the way to go. If you like more of a classic style, the Wave is much better for you. Now, as far as internal tools, it's a much more basic set on the Wingman. On one side, you got a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, if I can get that to focus. Which, for me, I've probably only used that flathead as a pry bar, which for light usage it does work well. And then on the other side we have this little cutting tool right here, which for me, I think they're calling it a package opener for the blister packs, and it does work very well for that. And that's about the only thing I've actually used it for. Next up we have what they're calling a file. This one's only to be a single cut on one side. Not really big enough to be usable for most things unless you're trying to like touch up something very, very small, lightweight, light duty, and it does have a small flathead screwdriver on the end there. Now this one does have some measurements on here. You can get a little over about 1.5 inches on here, but again, very small, utility only. And then finally we have the wire stripper in the corner here, as well as the can opener, which again does work surprisingly well for what it is. Now stepping back over to the Wave, we have a different set of tools here. So first off, we have the removable flathead screwdriver, or sorry, the removable Phillips head, which does flip over, and you have your flathead in one. Then you can also get the bit kit that'll actually work with this slot right here, and you will be able to have quite a bit more utility in there. And if I'm not mistaken, they have a version that will fit into the factory leather sheath as well. And then over here we also have the can opener. Have not tested this one, but again, I've had no issues with any of the ones that I've tested to date. They've all worked perfectly. And this is only going to be used in a situation where I cannot find a real can opener, because frankly, using these in general is not that fast and kind of pointless for the most part if you have an option to use a real can opener. Flipping over the other side, this is probably my most used tool here, which is going to be a much larger flathead screwdriver, which for me, it ends up getting used as a small lightweight pry bar. That's really the most useful thing I've found for it. And then we also have the precision screwdriver here. Right off the bat, it is a Phillips up top, but it does flip over to a flathead as well. Good for things like glasses, things like that, but there's not a ton of utility that I've found for it beyond that. I don't find myself running into the super fine stuff like that on a regular basis. As I mentioned before, all these tools do lock, and you can open them all at the same time. Granted, your utility is pretty much eliminated when you have them all open, because there's not a whole lot of room to work with either. But all lockable, which is a nice feature to have, which a lot of other multi-tools do not. But overall, both of these tools are going to serve you well. Very good quality. And the big thing is they do come with the incredibly nice lifetime warranty, which I've noted in a previous video that I actually need to send the Wingman out for service, because it did actually crack off a piece of metal right here in the corner when it was dropped. I'm assuming it got hit on something harder than when I dropped it. It was something more breaking off that piece that had already been cracked in the past. So I don't actually know how that happened. So at the end of the day, I need you to send this off. They'll either fix it or replace it, send it back to me, and I'll be in good shape. But in the meantime, it hasn't prohibited the utility of the multi-tool in the meantime. So now that you guys have seen the differences here, let me know which one would you guys pick, and if there's something you guys like better, which one is it, and why do you like it? And remember, as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.